The six sat side by side, looking out on the world from a precipice, a vantage point. The mountain that the precipice was connected to was like a Goliath, its peak undaunted by the heavy cloud cover, but the very sunlight to shame as it pierced through the sky hidden far above. It stood as a symbol of resistance, as if challenging the impending doom to try and ravage its surface. A turbulent wind that carried the smell of smoke ruffled the hair of the friends, setting them to sway and beat with the surrounding underbrush. The sky was clogged with black smoke. Temporarily, a fragment of blue would appear, giving a fool's gold hope, reminding them of the warm summer spent laughing and living, before again the blackness would seep back into volify its purity. Sparks like stars floated by the assembled, glowing briefly before blowing away on the wind like fleeting memories. And yet, in all the turmoil, the six remained calm. Their eyes carried a defiant, if not albeit tired, look, a testimony to sleepless nights and overexertion. They had tried, they had failed, and yet that look of defiance, as if their very gazes were making a final stand alongside their hosts, made it seem as if they had won. Maybe they had. In the distance, a hungry beast burned the world to the ground, a wall of fire that pressed ever nearer to the low precipice that served as our final piece of rest. From on the precipice, the solemn six could feel the angry heat, the very rage of the fire reaching out in envy, desiring to tarnish all that was pure, as the six were still beacons of that. And beneath them, countless others stood, gazing in contempt at the iconic people of harmony. Others endearingly at loved ones, snooty and seared. Others still looked at the crimson horizon in fear, as everything that consisted of their life was reduced to powder and thrown back in their face, to be tangled in hair and fur as ash. And yet, the people made no attempt to flee, as if the blazing horizon was more of a final light show after a good firework display, and then an end to all existence. An assembly that crowded at the feet of the elements, family and friends clutched loved ones, and what little physical possessions they could salvage in their hasty flight to the great mountain, swathed in tattyhood, cheerily burned badly in one spot at her side, fruitlessly attempted to reassure the gaggle of shivering children. Her eyes, glazed with irritation and tears, uncensored her deeper emotions. She portrayed herself as a hero to those that she helped, yet she herself knew of her mortality, and that, like everyone else, she too could bleed. Spitfire, her tight vest, once an enamel of fame, was charred in some places. She talked with the others on her team, or what was left. Here, in the assembly, the renown was as unimportant that they could only use to encourage each other. We survived worse. Remember that one time in Manhattan? Carrot Top, sooty and disheveled, desperately held her jaw in the Garden of Eden, a collection of countless seeds desperately saved as our humble home and brother were burned in front of her. The amount of tears she shed could be used to water the plants to good health. Even further down, the gruesome picture was witnessed by the stony six. Lines of their remained stragglers. Those lucky who through some divinity avoided their deaths and pursued the fable of sanctuary that had been spoken of on the streets, filed into the mass at the base of the precipice. More were to come. They could be seen on the horizon, nipped at by the ever-approaching wall of fire. Those that were too small, feeble, old, or weak fell behind to be burned by the apocalyptical force. The reality for those who could taste freedom on their tongue, never to grab it, but saw the mountain, the assembly, the elements, they would never make it. Eden would already be created, and they, the unlucky ones, would perish. Atop the mountain, Luna and Celestia gazed at their land in despair, their royal features tormented by an onslaught of emotions, fear, sorrow, regret. And in that temporary moment, where the attention of the masses were on the stoic six, they were in the midst of exchanging a tentative glance to one another, their brows furrowed with the knowledge of what they were about to do, the momentous task of turning over a fresh leaf in history. In that tense moment, the two sisters passed a silent message to one another, a census of two that decided the inevitable fate of the world. The weight of that world rested on their shoulders like never before. Back on the precipice, the six were in the midst of conversing, mumbling conspiracies and voicing concern. So this is the end. Our fate. How dreary. To all, yes. And, from the ashes, we will rise. Bring it back. Start again. But what of everyone else? They won't make it. No matter the action, one side will always suffer. The garden will be made. We will be protected. Celestia speed to the others who won't. Now that just ain't right. It's our only option now. The six sat on the precipice, their faces stoic, their posture iconic. The foliage was swaying, the fire was blazing, the smoke was black, and the wind was turbulent. The survivors made the assembly. They were the lucky ones, destined to start a new world. Celestia and Luna rose above all, elevated on a pedestal in their hands. The beginning of a new world had been placed. The shield would descend, the guard would be established, and life would prevail.